All across the fantasy universe, welcome one and all to the 2-Point Stance, powered by fantasypoints.com. I'm Brian Drake. Follow me on Twitter at Drake Fantasy. Hanging with my boy, Joe Dolan at FG_Dolan on Twitter. Joe, I'm back from vacation. I'm tanner, maybe more just burned than tan, to be honest. But I'm back. I got off the plane today from Florida. I hit the ground in sunny 40-degree Syracuse and said, I got to talk football with my guy Dolan. So we're here. We're ready to rock and roll. And apparently there's all kinds of Lamar Jackson stuff going on in the universe. So that's what we're going to talk about today is Lamar, the Lamar minutia, and maybe where he might end up. But what a day for Lamar.
I mean, he comes out, essentially writes an open letter to his fans on Twitter and blah, 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 blah. You might have the whole letter up there, Drake. By the way, welcome back. And when he essentially says that he had requested a trade from the Ravens on March 2nd. Now, I guess if you're the cynic here, we have this 24-hour news cycle that is the NFL. I guess if you're the cynic, you could say, well, Lamar Jackson's essentially been on the open market anyway. He's a free agent. Now he has the non-exclusive franchise tag where a team could sign him, and if the Ravens don't match it, it's 2 first-round picks, which quite frankly, Drake, it's
a bargain.
Not a whole lot for a young quarterback who's already won an NFL MVP. And the contract situation is a mess. We know that Deshaun Watson getting the fully guaranteed contract is, well, now if you read this optically, at best, it's making NFL teams leery of giving out a full-time contract. At worst, they're colluding to not give a fully guaranteed contract. And when I look at Lamar Jackson, Drake, imagine yourself in his shoes. And he said, I've won the MVP. What has this guy accomplished?
Yeah.
And I mean, on field, that's not even to talk about the off-field issues for Deshaun Watson. So I get Lamar Jackson's perspective here. I truly do. But it's going to be interesting. We're going to see there's still a chance he's playing for the Ravens. He requested a trade. He thinks he's going to move on. John Harbaugh was out today. Oh, these things will work themselves out. I don't really know what the heck he was saying, but look, we're going to have fun here. We're going to discuss. We're going to speculate. Yeah. That's what we do. We've come up with a list of potential destinations for Lamar Jackson that we think would be interesting. Now, let's be totally frank here, though. I went through the list today, and there are like 6 or 7 teams who probably shouldn't at least bring up Lamar's name in their meetings. Like, there might be a team like the Bears or something, and who would say, well, what about Lamar Jackson? I don't think that's right for us. But it's one of those teams where, like, it at least warrants a couple-minute conversation. So we can't just go through every team where that's valid because, again, there's 25, 26, 27 of those teams where it would be a valid conversation to have in their building. But there's some spots that are more realistic than others, of course.
And just to give you guys a quick recap of the craziness of the day, as Joe kind of alluded to, first word came out that Lamar requested a trade on March the 2nd. So maybe that's why when free agency opened, teams weren't clamoring to go sign him or to say, hey, we want Lamar, because maybe they knew this behind the scenes. So Lamar took to his own Twitter, posted several tweets saying, hey, Baltimore fans, they're not going to meet my value. He was kind of saying goodbye to them while plugging his own page. It wasn't an OnlyFans. Trust me, I checked. Then Ian Rappaport on NFL Network says, in the past week, Lamar and the Ravens had still been working on a deal. So we'll see what's going on there. Then we hear via Albert Breer that rapper Meek Mill, this is when shit gets off the rails, Joe. We got a rapper, Meek Mills, texting Patriots billionaire owner Robert Kraft saying that Lamar wanted to come to New England. Kraft then responds that it's Bill Belichick's decision. And then as we get into a team later, we have Joe Douglas talking about if the Jets would be interested in Lamar. So a whole lot going on here. We'll get into all those teams, but let me first say this about Lamar. They don't want to pay him $45 million a year. They don't want to pay him a guaranteed contract. They're using the mouthpieces of the NFL Network to kind of push that agenda onto the fans. Like, no, this isn't what the owners want to do, and blah, 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 blah. Do you think they use that non-exclusive tag, though, to sort of gauge the market on Lamar? So it's like they're only competing with themselves really on this contract. So they could say, well, we can always match the contract anyone gives him. So let's see what someone gives him. And it kind of shows him too, like, hey, buddy, maybe you're not worth all this. Like someone's only wanting to pay you $35 million versus the 45 you want.
I would think a lot of people would say they were sick and tired of negotiating with them. So they're like, all right, let's let the other 31 teams negotiate with you. And if there's an offer that you find amenable, we are going to have the opportunity to match it, and we didn't have to negotiate with you. So maybe they viewed that as a win-win. But of course, these things are not in a vacuum. These are people relationships. And it seems like the Ravens' relationship with Lamar Jackson has eroded for whatever reason. And there could always be things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. But we do know that he doesn't have an agent. Well, who is this guy, Ken Francis, that the NFL said you can't negotiate with? Like, there's some bizarre stuff going on here, man.
And you've got rappers texting owners on his behalf now.
But ultimately, if teams are interested in Deshaun Watson after dozens of sexual assault allegations, it feels like teams can look over the fact that Lamar Jackson doesn't have an agent, right?
Oh, without question.
Well, like, I mean, come on. Like, maybe there are things that are preventing teams from wanting to negotiate with Lamar Jackson. You know, he's been hurt the last couple of years. I don't like that he doesn't have an agent, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, we've seen teams overlook way more for the quarterback position. So this is one of the more bizarre kind of stories that I've encountered in my time in the league. And it's part of the new kind of the quarterback empowerment era in the NFL, I guess.
Jason LaCanfora had a great tweet also I want to run by you where he said, good luck finding an organization over the last few years to have this many prominent players and or first-round picks who want out. And then he lists Lamar Jackson, Orlando Brown, Hollywood Brown, Hayden Hurst, and possibly Patrick Queen next. So, I mean, this could just be kind of a behind-the-scenes, look of maybe the Ravens are cheap, maybe they got a bad culture, maybe the owner's a douchebag. Maybe, there's something going on here. Like, why do all these people want to get out of what we look at from the outside and say a winning organization in Baltimore? They have a lot of success in Baltimore. Like, why wouldn't people want to be a part of this? But Jason brings up a good point, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It kind of feels to me in recent years, I always make this joke around draft time, like the old, and I still use it even though I know Ozzie Newsome's not the general manager. Every single time the Baltimore Ravens make a draft pick, it's like the entire NFL media conglomerate just loses its mind. Oh, Ozzie does it again.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe they got that guy. Oh, there's such a Ravens pick. The best player in the draft somehow fell to the 7th round. Oh, I can't believe they did that. And then sometimes, it's like the Jurassic Park thing. You were so preoccupied with whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if you should. They haven't drafted a wide receiver since the Cretaceous period. Well, I guess they did draft Rashad Bateman and he got hurt, but still, Hollywood Brown, I know, but they went into this offseason last year with arguably a bottom 3 wide receiver group in the NFL. They traded Hollywood Brown during the draft and did nothing to address the position. Sometimes you almost wonder if this is an organization that likes to stick its own head between its own legs and see what it's cooking up down below, just like, oh man, bring it on, man. We're the Baltimore Ravens. And, when Joe Flacco's around and, average Joe is just content with strolling through life with his 9-figure salary, and maybe that works. But when Lamar Jackson's out here winning MVPs and they're signing Sammy Watkins to a 1-year deal for the 37th consecutive season, maybe it doesn't work that way. And so I'm kind of on Lamar's side here, Drake. I don't know about you, but I'm on Lamar's side. And I understand why the Ravens would be annoyed, but I feel like I'm on his side, at least leaning that way.
It's always funny when you mention the Ravens draft. And I made this joke on Twitter where someone was talking about the Ravens and their picks. And I go, it doesn't matter, like you said, who the Ravens pick, who's on the board. They're taking like an off-ball linebacker. in the first round. They can never get enough linebackers. Or, it's going to be a linebacker. It's going to be a corner. It's going to be they're taking defense. They could have Jesus himself with a face mask ready to play quarterback. And they're going to go, you know what? There's this linebacker. We don't need him. Let's get another inside linebacker. Come on. Bring him on. All right. Fine,
or there's a great receiver on the board and they don't take him. Yeah, I just don't know. There's something going on in Baltimore. Anyway.
Yeah, we're talking about the draft. If you guys are getting the itch to draft out there, and from what I'm seeing on Twitter, apparently everyone has a hot take about something in fantasy football. So why not put those takes to the test and draft over at Underdog Fantasy? Use our promo code FANTASYPTS. When you use our code at Underdog Fantasy, we're going to give you up to $100 first-time deposit bonus. How easy is that, folks? Use Fantasy PTS as your code. Deposit $100. I'm going to match your $100. Don't tell John Hanson that. He doesn't know. I'm just kidding. He does. Then what we're going to do, we're going to give you a standard subscription to fantasypoints.com for just $5. All that. We're going to give you a $100 matching deposit bonus and a subscription to the website for $5. So, folks, Fantasy PTS. Get off the couch. Actually, you know what? Stay on the couch. Download the app Underdog. Use the code FANTASYPTS. Let's rock and roll and start winning some best ball drafts. So we said there's some crazy stuff going on out there, Joe. There's crazy stuff going on in New York. So we had Joe Douglas today, who is the general manager of the New York Jets. He went on record and just sort of had verbal diarrhea talking about everything under the sun, from Odell Beckham to the trade with Aaron Rodgers. And then someone asked him about Lamar Jackson. And Joe Douglas, who again was with the Ravens for a number of years, said the Jets have not discussed pursuing Lamar Jackson. Quote, "It would be disingenuous and negotiating in bad faith if we went down that path. Right now we have our plan and we have our process and we're sticking to that." So does that mean to use hey, it's Aaron Rodgers or bust right here, which really would make no sense if you could get Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, so you ever see you a Batman guy, Drake?
I've seen some of the movies.
Okay, well,
Michael Keaton being the best.
I'm a Michael. He's coming back, by the way. He's
great.
Back, Batman.
Old guys unite.
It apparently still fits in the original Batsuit, by the way. Anyway, of the Christopher Nolan trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises, the third, is an extremely bloated film. It's ambitious. Tough rewatch, but there's a lot of good stuff in it. But of course, Tom Hardy's Bane character is iconic. And when Joe Douglas was making this argument here that, it would be bad faith for us to essentially, I don't think he mentioned Aaron Rodgers by name, but he essentially said, like, this is what we're doing. We're negotiating with the Packers for Aaron Rodgers, and we're not going to go to negotiation. A line from Tom Hardy's Bane popped into my head, and it's like, Bruce Wayne as Batman is doing something, hoity-toity and noble. And Bane mentions that what he was doing was admirable, but mistaken. And what Joe Douglas is doing here is admirable, but mistaken. Like, dude, Aaron Rodgers has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that he'll turn his back on anyone. And you know what? If the Packers are playing hardball, pivot and go talk to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Now, maybe the Jets know that this is going to be a hard negotiation anyway. We could always go the route of we're going to sign him to an offer sheet, and then the Ravens are going to match it anyway, and we don't get our quarterback, and we've pissed off Aaron Rodgers. So maybe that's the thinking here for Joe Douglas. But no, I would much rather have Lamar Jackson than Aaron Rodgers. Probably even including next year. I think you can make the argument that if you can have Aaron Rodgers for 1 year or Lamar Jackson for 1 year, that you could still say Aaron Rodgers gives us a better chance to win. This is a guy who won the MVP twice in a row, more recently than Lamar won his MVP, despite the age difference. But if you're building a franchise and you're trying to win Super Bowls or go to Super Bowls and win division titles, the better option is Lamar Jackson. There's no two ways about it.
The New York Jets own the 13th overall pick. Could that be enticing to the Ravens? I'm sure it could be. They also own picks 42 and 43 in round number 2. So let's spin this forward. Let's say you could have Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson. One of those guys could be the quarterback of the New York Football Jets. We're talking Garrett Wilson Breece Hall, Allen Lazard. Who gives you the better fantasy upside, Joe Dolan, for these fantasy playmakers in 2023?
For the playmakers, Rodgers.
Okay.
But Lamar Jackson with those playmakers, pretty freaking appealing, right? I mean, Rodgers is a ball distributor, and Rodgers isn't going to take off and run as much. So Rodgers gives them a better upside. They just signed Allen Lazard to a $44 million contract specifically because Aaron Rodgers wanted to throw him the football. Now, the better option for these pass catchers is Aaron Rodgers. Now, Hollywood Brown, by the way, 2 years ago, this was a guy who was top 10 in the NFL in targets at wide receiver. Mark Andrews was like the tight end 2 years ago. So Lamar Jackson can absolutely get the ball to good players. But Aaron Rodgers would be better for this team from a fantasy perspective, at least in 2023.
It sounds to me like Jets fans, you're already down this road. Like you are so married to the idea of Aaron Rodgers that you can't even look in a different direction right now, which it might be a better direction, but they're already down this path. All right, let's go look at the Falcons and Titans. And I want to group these two teams together because they're both bad and neither of them have really a long-term plan at quarterback. So the Falcons are rolling out the craptastic duo of Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. They also have the 8th overall pick. The Titans have the 11th pick, and they're kind of just playing out the string with Ryan Tannehill at this point. So with those two teams, you're looking at run-based offenses. Do I think Lamar could have great success in either of those franchises? Absolutely. Like Atlanta in the dome with those young receivers. Like I'm for that. Now in Tennessee, we've got Treylon Burks. You still have Henry behind him. That would be a really unique offense to try to defend, with those two monsters coming at you. But, I think to me, the Falcons are the sexier option. You think there's a chance he goes to either of those teams? And then for a fantasy lean, what kind of, tickles the taint?
I think
that's going to be a t-shirt coming soon at fantasypoints.com.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson tickles the taint. Yeah, that'll sell a lot of shirts. I think Atlanta is a team that absolutely would be involved in Lamar Jackson. Look, we know Atlanta was in it for Deshaun Watson last year. I thought there was a point where it looked like Atlanta was going to get Deshaun Watson, but they didn't get him. Lamar Jackson's from Florida, so obviously the Southeast is close to him. Mm-hmm. This is something where, I think he could come in and really command the Atlanta Falcons and the fans. You've already had in Atlanta one of the greatest running quarterbacks of all time in Michael Vick. Here would be one of the other. Both of them you would say are in the top 5 among greatest running quarterbacks of all time. So that's a style that has obviously played well in Atlanta. We know Arthur Blank is aggressive. They don't have a quarterback on their roster who you're like, yeah, that guy's the guy. You're not making you're not going to put your foot down and say, no, we're not going to trade for Lamar Jackson because we just signed Taylor Heineke. Okay, that's not going to happen. I think Atlanta makes a ton of sense. We know Arthur Smith, by the way, is someone who loves to run the football, and Lamar Jackson is always going to help your team run the football. And that's why I think Tennessee makes some sense as well. There was rumors that they were looking to move Derrick Henry. That could still happen. There was a lot of moves, Drake, that didn't happen until draft night, last year. The Hollywood Brown move, the A.J. Brown draft move did not happen until draft night. So there's still plenty of times for trades to happen. Maybe Derrick Henry does, or maybe Tennessee's like, you know what? There hasn't been a market for Derrick Henry. We're going to roll it back. We're going to run the hell out of the football, and Lamar Jackson's going to help us do that. And maybe, Tennessee's able to say to Baltimore, you're in a tough spot. Here's Ryan Tannehill. He's going to come in and he's going to give you a solid starting quarterback who can be part of the trade package. Obviously would be a throw into the trade package, much like Jared Goff was in the Matthew Stafford deal. But it feels like that's a trade that I don't think this isn't one that, again, to say Tennessee wouldn't tickle my taint from a fantasy perspective.
I love that.
But it's something that I think would make sense for the Titans if they chose to pursue it.
Going off the show sheet here, you mentioned the Detroit Lions. The Lions have pick 6, 18, and then in the round 2, they have pick number 48 and 55. So they have 4 picks in the top 55. They got Jared Goff. All right. Yes, Jared Goff was the first overall pick several years back, but let's be honest, that didn't quite pan out to where you would think with a guy taking number 1 overall. You think maybe Detroit gets kind of sneaky? They're having quite the offseason.
Could Jared Goff be the throw-in quarterback in 2 blockbuster trades in 3 years? Detroit's got a lot of shit, man. They have a lot of juice. And look at the NFC. Look at the NFC, and we will get to that later, by the way, for my number 1 Lamar Jackson fit. There's a tease for you. But, I mean, you put Lamar Jackson in a hot air balloon and you drop him in Michigan, all of a sudden I think the Lions are a contender anyway in the NFC.
Sure.
Division's
garbage.
Jared Goff played good football last year. Jared Goff can go and again, Jared Goff could go to Baltimore just like the Ryan Tannehill trade and say, hey, we've got you a dependable starter here. We know the Ravens aren't much for rebuilding. Here's a dependable starter that we'll throw in. I think Detroit could be pretty exciting.
Oh, I like that. So just throwing that in. We're doing it live.
Jared Goff, man. Takes a team to the Super Bowl, has his best season since then, and then we're trading him. Takes a team to the Super Bowl, gets traded. Now he's had his best season since then. We're trading him this offseason, but it would make sense with the Detroit Lions, yes.
I'm looking up Jared Goff's contract just as we speak. I want to see what he's still owed. 2023, he's got a base salary of $20.9 million. His cap number's 30.9. So we got a roster bonus, so that would get prorated if he got traded anyways, right? Next year he's only got a base salary of 21.9. So it's pretty affordable. And actually next year he has 0 guaranteed money. You could do that as a 1-year move with Jared Goff and get out of it after 2023. Oh, we got the wheels turning now. I like this.
I think Detroit's definitely a space that would make a lot of sense. I think that would be exciting from a fantasy perspective. Again, I think this team's going to be good anyway. So, Lamar Jackson would just take him to the next level.
Getting excited. Now it's making me pop my WrestleMania beer. Let's go. I'm back from vacation. I'm still drinking.
I'm not drinking tonight. Damn you, drink. And that makes me want to have a beer.
All right. How about this one? And this is a sneaky one, but it's gaining some traction out there in the universe, and it's the Indianapolis Colts. And I know you like this one. They've got new head coach, former Eagles OC Shane Steichen. So everyone will put together like, hey, running quarterback. I get all that. But Indy needs a QB. They own the 4th overall pick. That pick's likely going to be a quarterback. But Joe, you're getting excited for Will Levis? No, that's awful. Nobody wants that.
You know what, Drake? Here's one thing I refuse to do. I can have a predisposed opinion about a quarterback. Now, first and foremost, Will Levis is somebody who at Penn State I saw couldn't get on the field because of Sean Clifford, who, let's just say, had an up and down college career. Forgive me for being skeptical about Will Levis, but the last number of quarterbacks who I've heard everybody on draft Twitter completely shit on in the pre-draft process were Josh Allen and Daniel Jones. Josh Allen's one of the best players on planet Earth, and Daniel Jones just got, whether you think he deserved it or not, just got a $30+ million a year contract. So I'm not going to fall into the everybody's going to crap on Will Levis group thing. However, Lamar Jackson is a different Band-Aid than the Band-Aid the Colts have been putting on that position the last 3 years. Completely different. He's an MVP who's not yet 27, okay? Yes, you make that trade if you're the Indianapolis Colts.
And you're a guy who likes to use the term, how do we sell this to the fan base? And we've talked about it on some of our earlier 2-point stance episodes. And can you sell a rookie quarterback and the hope that comes with it? Okay, yeah, I guess you can with new head coach, new quarterback. We get that. Boy, you really turn the volume up when you say we're bringing Lamar Jackson. The defense is still good in Indianapolis. They got some playmakers.
At the very least, got Taylor and Pittman on offense, so you got something there. No, and I used that term when I was talking about Jim Irsay. If they were to bring in Derek Carr, you can't sell that to the Indianapolis Colts fans. Yeah, is he going to be better than Matt Ryan? Probably. Is he going to be better than Carson Wentz? Sure. Is he going to be better than Phillip Rivers was 3 years ago? Arguable. Phillip Rivers actually had a pretty good year with the Colts. But Lamar Jackson, that's a needle moving move. And I think Colts fans and the Colts fans should be all in on a rookie quarterback right now, but Colts fans absolutely would buy into Lamar Jackson, and they should. And then there's the Steichen factor, by the way. And I think Jalen Hurts to Lamar Jackson is a lazy comparison because they both can run. Here's what's lazy about it. First and foremost, Jalen Hurts is a bull. Lamar Jackson's a gazelle. They're different. They're different runners. Also, Lamar Jackson is an impeccable between the numbers thrower. That's not Jalen Hurts' strong suit. Hurts likes to go downfield outside the numbers. So it would be different. But Shane Steichen knows.
Throwers, you're right.
For sure. But Shane Steichen knows the advantage a quarterback who can run gives to the offense. And I think Shane Steichen would be able to scheme very well for a unique talent like Lamar Jackson. So I think the coaching fit is good, even though a Jackson-Hurts comparison, they're not similar, but they do bring the element as a runner, which I think would appeal to Shane Steichen. Even if he doesn't need it, I think it would appeal to him.
Let me throw this at you. What about Jonathan Taylor in this scenario where before he had these statue quarterbacks that would just turn around and hand the football? Lamar obviously would take goal line carries away from him, but you've got to contend now. This would be an RPO offense if Lamar Jackson were to come to Indianapolis. Where would you kind of look at Jonathan Taylor for fantasy? I mean, he's a first round pick. Are you expecting 15 touchdowns? You think he's going to run for 1,200 yards? I mean, what do you expect in an offense with Lamar Jackson? I
expect a really strong performance. By the way, Jalen Hurts' RPO rate, this is per fantasy points data last year. Jalen Hurts' RPO rate was 9.3%. That was second highest in the NFL. Lamar Jackson was at 5.8%, which looking at my numbers right now, I'm just doing a quick purview. That looks like that was about fourth highest in the NFL among qualified quarterbacks. By the way, the highest, Aaron Rodgers. Interestingly enough. But so Lamar Jackson would fit well. I think Jonathan Taylor would be a good fit there because Jonathan Taylor is one of the running backs who we don't count on receiving production for it's a bonus with him, right? I always likened it to when Marshawn Lynch would catch passes. Like he would catch 2 a game and you'd be like, all right, there's the 2. If he had a game where he had 4, you're like, hell yeah. He didn't need them. But if he got him, you were happy. I feel like Jonathan Taylor is a capable receiver who, from a fantasy perspective, you don't count on the receptions. If you get them, they're nice, and you know he can do it. I don't think he'd get a lot of receptions in a Lamar Jackson quarterbacked offense, but I also think he'd get a lot of touchdown opportunities because, again, Shane Steichen is probably not running the push sneak with Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole Lamar Jackson doesn't squat 600 pounds. Jalen Hurts does. So I would think Jonathan Taylor would get a lot of touchdown opportunities with Lamar Jackson at quarterback.
And let's not forget Miles Sanders, who 2 years ago had 0 touchdowns. I believe had double-digit touchdowns this past year in an offense with Jalen Hurts, who was phenomenal. Had the obviously best season of his career. Well, let's stick in the NFC with, we were talking Eagles. Obviously, Lamar's not going to the Eagles. But let's go over to one of their division rivals and the Commanders. And the Commanders are in a tough spot. They don't have a lot of cap space. Their team's kind of in turmoil. They could be sold any day now. So I don't know if you're going to be able to pull off a blockbuster trade with a lame duck owner. They're trotting out Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett in 2023. Hashtag yikes.
I mean, it could be worse. I mean, there's some teams in worse spots. Yeah. And by the way, when we came up with this list of teams, I think, Drake, we were under the presumption that like teams can make cap space if they want to make a blockbuster move. Washington's an easy sell. I think Commanders fans are sick and tired of the Ravens having, basically, with the exception of the one RG3 year, probably tired of the Ravens having the better quarterback on 95. Like come on, like
that's a good. I like that narrative. Take from your, I want to say little brother down the road, because that's essentially, Washington is, say what you will about the dumpster fire of a franchise. They are the team, and they've been that way for a number of years since the inception. But Baltimore has come in, and you lived in that area, Joe, sort of. Like
the Ravens are hip.
Yeah, I mean, they got stuff going on because they win. Washington's got a bad owner. They got a bad record. They got a bad stadium. Everything about them is bad. this could be what they need to turn around. You sell the team, you get Lamar. God knows you get a new stadium down the road. I don't know.
I mean, I
We'll
even
see.
think if Daniel Snyder's still there, this is something where he's like, let's make him forget about me for a little bit, you know? I don't think this is going to happen. They signed Brissett. I have every reason to believe they like Sam Howell, but the geography narrative's there. The selling it to your fan base is there. And if Daniel Snyder decides to sell, I mean, it's an NFL team. These things would go for billions if you and I were on the quarterback depth chart, Drake. But
I'm available.
But Lamar Jackson would be an easy sell for a new owner. Hey, we got an MVP quarterback in town. That's an easy buy. Again, that's just going to move the needle just a tiny bit because these teams would sell again with you and I on the team. But Washington is a team again in the NFC, the weaker conference, especially in terms of the quarterback position. That's a needle moving kind of move in more ways than one.
Let's stay in the NFC with our final team here and let's get nuts. How about the San Francisco 49ers? San Francisco has two quarterbacks who are young, cheap, and hurt. So you got Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, both on the rookie deals, and both likely, though, could fetch you something back in a trade. That's something we haven't really covered with any of these other teams, is you now have a viable quarterback asset to maybe two to trade.
Heck, take both of them, Baltimore. Let you fight it out, you know?
Yeah. Or you're telling me you couldn't trade Brock Purdy to one team and Trey Lance to another? I know you spent the farm to get Trey Lance, but where's that going to get you at the end of the day? So San Francisco doesn't have a pick in the first or second round, but they do own 3 of the final 4 selections in round 3 that are comp picks. So, they'd be looking maybe down the road with some first round picks. So that could be an issue, but you brought this up. You were formulating this plan in your head. Why do you like Lamar to San Francisco so much?
Because it's the stylistic fit is perfect. San Francisco making moves is in John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's blood. We saw what they did with Christian McCaffrey. Of course, that's why this probably isn't going to happen because they don't have the draft capital to make it happen. But in terms of a stylistic and a fantasy fit, there is not a better one than Lamar Jackson to the San Francisco 49ers. If you're the 49ers, you traded all those picks for Trey Lance to get a term that I love. Our guy, Brett Whitefield, who did the prospect guide at fantasypoints.com. It's free, by the way. Go check it out. He uses the term math changer. It changes the way teams have to defend you. That's why they went out and got Trey Lance, okay? Because Jimmy Garoppolo was so boring. Jimmy Garoppolo, who's gonna make you. He's gonna get you 5 yards on 3rd and 5, but he might do it at the expense of leaving a 40-yard touchdown on the field. Lamar Jackson's a math changer. That's what they wanted Trey Lance to be. Kyle Shanahan very clearly viewed the running element of the quarterback position as appealing to him. Unfortunately, we haven't really gotten to see it in action because Trey Lance has played so sparingly. But I would think you got Deebo Samuel. You got George Kittle. 2 guys who thrive after the catch, who thrive over the middle, where we know Lamar Jackson likes to throw the football. You've got a chain mover in Jawan Jennings, somebody where Lamar Jackson likes to throw the football. Apparently, they're entertaining trades for Brandon Ayuk. Maybe Ayuk is part of a Lamar Jackson package, theoretically. But, man, that would be an appealing somebody to move for the Ravens. That'd be a guy who's appealing if he's in San Francisco. But coach, team strategy, general manager philosophy, all this lines up. I just think San Francisco has spent too much draft capital to this point in order to swing this deal. And also for San Francisco, talk about math changer, not on the field, not simply on a micro level, but on a macro level. They just got shellacked by the Eagles in large part because they didn't have a quarterback in that game.
True.
But everybody heading into that game, the 49ers have the better team. The Eagles might have the better quarterback, but the 49ers have the better team. Well, Lamar Jackson sure as hell is an equalizer in that regard with Jalen Hurts. And in a weak NFC, that's a guy who probably puts you as the Super Bowl favorite.
I love this Brandon Ayuk talk, and I want to just bring that up momentarily. So Brandon Ayuk is on his 4th of 5 years. Remember, Brandon Ayuk was a first-round pick a few years ago out of Arizona State. So this year, he's only making a little over $2 million. They exercised the 5th-year option on him. So next season, the following season, 2023, Joe, they have to pay Brandon Ayuk $14.12 million. There is 0.0 chance San Francisco is going to pay Brandon Ayuk that money.
Yeah. So what I would think is, like, let's just construct a trade package. I think it would have to be either Lance or Purdy, whichever one Baltimore.
They're cheap. I mean,
Right.
Lance, I looked at his, he makes under 10 million if you all included.
Lance
and
or
Purdy makes nothing.
Now, the thing about Purdy is his elbow might be ground beef right now, and John
Which is
Lynch,
why they need us on the roster. We were just mentioning it. We're putting it all together, folks.
I mean, we could have. Who ended up playing quarterback for them? It was Josh Johnson, and then it was Purdy had to come back in. He couldn't throw the football. That was brutal to watch.
We're Eagles fans. It wasn't that brutal.
No, it was. You bring in. Look, you pick either Lance or Purdy, whichever one you want. You're getting our 2024 and our 2025 first, if they have a 2024 first. I don't even know if they have that. You're getting Brandon Ayuk, probably some other miscellaneous picks in there. And that's probably the package that it would take. And I think another team could beat that. Again, right now, a team could, in theory, just have him for 2 first-round picks, presuming Baltimore doesn't match the offer. But again, this is an unprecedented situation. It's a weird situation. It's one that I didn't anticipate having to talk about to this point. But San Francisco is a team that would be motivated to get this done. They have traded so much in the pursuit of a quarterback that I can't imagine they wouldn't be willing to go a little bit further, especially since the roster's so good already.
San Francisco 2024 draft picks. Let's see what they have available. Boy, oh boy, they've traded so many of them.
I don't think
they're going to get a ton of more comp picks. I think they do have their first.
Let's see. Yep, they have their first. As a matter of fact, the only pick that they have traded so far from 2024 is their 5th round pick. That was part of the McCaffrey deal. So they still have their first. The only 2 teams who don't have a first next year are Carolina and Cleveland.
Interesting. I love that. Of all the teams we mentioned, 49ers, Colts, Commanders, Titans, and the Lions, Jets. Where do you want it? He could even stay with the Ravens. Where do you want Lamar to go?
Of all these teams?
For a fantasy, that's what we do here. We're talking fantasy. And football, we love good football. Where do you want to see Lamar Jackson play football in 2023 and beyond?
San Francisco, from a fantasy perspective. As an Eagles fan, that one would sting. But no, if you want the best fit in terms of scheme, in terms of personnel around him, it's the San Francisco 49ers.
Boy, oh boy. That would be something. Yeah. Look at that offense. Lamar, McCaffrey, Kittle, Debo. Whew.
And we're even presuming Ayuk's part of the deal.
Right. Man,
you damn well know. You know the 49ers. You damn well know John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are having that talk right now.
49ers are that guy, and these are the guys I love in my league because they're kind of like me, where you're in your fantasy football league and you're like, screw it. I'm here to win. It doesn't matter if I come in second place in this league. I'm trading all my good dudes. It's like to go to that one bad team in the league, and they're like, I am getting Lamar Jackson off you. Here's all this capital. Turn your team around. Give me your best player. And the rest of your league will hate you afterwards. But it doesn't matter because you're just trying to hoist the trophy. And
flags fly forever, man. The Rams fans have been saying it. It's still true. Didn't make watching them in 2022 any more pleasant, but it at least made it more palatable. And flags fly forever. And if the 49ers get one after coming up on the doorstep, how many times in the past decade, including a couple trips to the Super Bowl, I think they'd get over how much it cost.
Yeah,
that's the best spot for him. I don't think they have the capital to get it done, but I should probably stop underestimating John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan.
And you talk Rams, they're tanking for Caleb Williams for next year. They already went all in. They took down the pot, and then they were eliminated on day 1 of the World Series of Poker the next year. But guess what? They got their bracelet. That's fine. They did. And folks, you're getting your World Series of Poker bracelets, podcast style, By listening to these fantasypoints.com podcasts, make sure you're subscribed to not only our podcast feed via Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast, but make sure you're going to that YouTube page. We got so much great content over there, youtube.com/fantasypoints. Joe, if you go to the website, you're the managing editor. We got content galore. You want XFL, you want best ball, you want NFL draft. It's really the one-stop shop for the football fan at fantasypoints.com.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Brett Whitefield's done a great job with our prospect guide, daily podcast, which if you're listening to this feed, you know that the On the Clock podcast has been coming each and every day. I'm looking forward to everything that we have in store for us this spring and summer. Really excited about the changes that we've made at Fantasy Points and what we're doing going forward.
Let's go. Get excited about it. Get over to Underdog. Download the app, use our code FANTASYPTS. Again, we're going to match your first time deposit up to $100, and you're going to get a code to get a $5 fantasypoints.com subscription. Joe, this was fun. I was glad to get back off the plane. I can't move too much because of the sunburn, but we'll keep rocking and rolling here on the 2 Point Stance. And we're so glad that you guys are all with us here. Again, give Joe a follow on Twitter at FG_Dolan. I'm at Drake Fantasy, and Fantasy Points is at FantasyPTS. All right, everybody. Take care. Good night. Leave us something fun on the YouTube page in the comments. Take it easy.